Sadia, thank you so much for having us back again, and welcome back to those of you that are returning for coming, and thank you for showing up. Whether you're plant curious, whether you're on this path, whether someone has twisted your arm to come here and listen, as I said last time, or maybe you're related to me and you thought you'd better be there. But we hope there'll be something tonight for everyone, no matter where you are on this journey. So if this is your first class, or even if you're returning too, I just applaud you, or we applaud you, I should say, for seeking more information to improve your health. So I do have one disclaimer, and just to say that I am not a medical professional. We are here for educational purposes. And if you have specific health conditions, seek a healthcare provider. Joan is going to be putting some resources in the chat, so please keep checking that as we go along. And we also have a special tab in our pbnm.org website. That's the plant-based nutrition movement. There's a special tab called Miscellaneous Resources, and we added some of the books and websites and apps and things that we've talked about throughout this whole couple of classes. So you can check that as well. So we're going to do just a couple of our own polls here, just to get a feel for who's out there in Zoom land, since I can't see any of you, and just to see if you currently follow a whole food plant-based diet. So if you could answer yes most of the time, sometimes, rarely, or no, these are optional polls, and they are also anonymous, so not to worry about how you vote. Just can be honest with us, just so we have an idea of who's coming tonight. So we'll just give it a few more seconds. So it looks like right now we have quite a few people that are somewhere along that spectrum, and a few that are here and maybe just interested in finding out some more. So, okay. All right, I think we can end that for now. And here's share our results. Do I hit that, or I guess we can just see that. Okay, and then just one more quick question for us. Have you attended the last two classes? So if you could just mark if you came to one or two, or this is your first class. Can you put that up, Sadia? I don't see it. Oh, there we go. Okay, very good. All right, so we've got a lot of returnees. Thank you, that's great. Okay. All right, we're going to jump into this. So for those of you that are here for the first time, we're going to do just a very, very quick review. In part one, Joan and I shared how we got started in this lifestyle change. We both became interested in this because of health conditions, mostly of our husbands. And we both saw dramatic health success in terms of reducing cholesterol, reducing risks of heart disease or further heart disease, losing weight, improving digestion, and reducing further risks from cancer. And we talked about, well, what was the problem? And we learned from Joan in part one that through evidence-based research that the current SAD, or SAD, Standard American Diet, which included a lot of animal products and dairy and processed foods, often leads to increases in heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, and other things. And then we talked about the solution, which was the food again. So we showed you lots of research demonstrating the benefits of eating a plant-based diet. So, and even if you change just a little more than what you're doing now, that's going to have an effect on your future health at any age. So then in part two, we gave you some practical tips to start your journey. We talked about how to transition, what foods to eat, simple meals, some time and budget saving ideas. So if you missed that, like Sadia said, you can pick that up on the YouTube channel for the library. So then tonight, we're going to talk about losing weight, reading food labels, going out to eat, traveling, some meal planning, some easy, no recipe meals, and hopefully we'll have time for more of your questions as well. So let's get started. So again, super quick review. Vegetarian is no meat, but it might be, some people might still eat cheese and eggs. Vegan, no animal products. Whole food, plant-based eating, no animal products or processed food. So, you know, potato chips, Oreos, those are all vegan, but again, you can figure out whether those are healthy vegan or not. So we're going to concentrate on the whole food, plant-based foods tonight, which include fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes and beans, nuts and seeds, spices and herbs, and minimally processed foods such as pasta, tofu, bread, crackers, things like that. So I like to think of these foods as that everything that I'm eating is adding nutrients to my health, to my body. And I just, one quick reminder too about vitamin B12. If you decide to go 100% or 90% plant-based, it is pretty much agreed on that you need to take a supplement because that is not found directly without being added to foods, plant foods, that is. Okay, and the foods that we avoid would be those processed foods, dairy, animal products, minimal to no sugar, minimal to no salt, additives that you cannot pronounce. We'll talk some more about that tonight too, and oil. And big question is, why not oil? So I'm going to give you my down and dirty 3 reasons why we don't eat oil, and Joan's going to cover that a little bit more in the next section as well. But I get asked that quite often. So here's my answer. Number 1, it's a processed food. Number 2, it's high in calories and has minimal nutrients. And the oil reduces the capacity of our endothelial cells to produce nitric oxide, which we need for healthy blood flow through the arteries. So that's it. That was enough for me to take oil out of my diet. So I'm going to let Joan take over now, and she's going to tell you about a topic that we found last time people were very interested in. All right, and she'll just let me know when to move ahead. Oops, you got to unmute, Joan. You look good, but we can't hear you.
That helps. Okay, I'm happy to talk about calorie density. I actually do a whole program on calorie density. So this is just a snapshot. I'm giving you a very good resource about calorie density that will help you if you want to go further into this. But let's just talk about I think the best way to understand why eating a whole food plant-based diet can help with weight loss is to visualize a stomach, your stomach, and see how you can fill it up. Because you need to know a few things about what's going to satisfy you. That stomach needs to be full. And if it isn't, you're going to start having food cravings. You're going to get really hungry. So people a lot of times say, well, I'm going to diet and I just won't eat anything. Your body will defeat you because there's something called ghrelin, which is a hunger hormone, and the body's going to demand food. So you need about 4 cups to fill the human stomach. And to feel full throughout the day, most humans need to fill that stomach up 2 or 3 times a day. Now, you can fill it up with all kinds of foods, and some are calorie dense, but don't take up much space in your stomach. And then there are others that take up lots of space, but don't have many calories. And to give you an example, let's just say you want to eat 500 calories. Now, if you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, that'd be about 1/4 of what you're going to eat during the day. Okay, now you can have those 500 calories in oil. And you can see it doesn't fill the stomach up very much, does it? Okay, and you say, okay, I'll have cheese. Yeah, it fills it up a little bit more, but that's no way of filling up the whole stomach, 500 calories. How about meat? Meat does a little better, a little less than half, about 1/3. Oh, okay, I'm going to have some potatoes or maybe some rice or some beans. Now we're talking, that stomach is getting filled up. Or you can say, I'm going for the fruits and the veggies, and you can see your stomach is full with 500 calories. So you can go the very calorie dense, low volume oil on one end, or the very calorie light, but high nutrient, big volume food on the right. And that's why a whole food plant-based diet will keep you lean and satisfied. That's the whole concept of calorie density. Let's take another look at the next slide. And let's go over the definition. So I'm sure that you know what it is. Calorie density, it's a measure of how many calories are in a given weight of food. Usually it's a pound, but sometimes it can be like a gram. It's the simplest approach to healthful eating and lifelong weight management. You may not have heard of it, but more and more diet experts are talking about calorie density because it's so commonplace. You don't have to count calories, you don't have to measure, you don't have to weigh or keep track of portions. Generally, as calorie density goes up, as calorie density goes down, nutrient density goes up. Now, that's not always true. We do have some foods that are high in calories, but by golly, they're high in nutrients as well. But often, especially when we're talking about processed foods, the higher the calorie density, the lower the nutrient density. So you're going for low calorie density. And let's go on to the next slide and we'll see. Here's an example. I talked about 500 calories. This happens to be 480 calories. You can go either way. Here's 480 calories on the plate. Here's 400 with olive oil. Here's 480 calories of fruits and vegetables. And I think there's a piece of bread or grain in there as well. Do you see why that would fill you up on the right? And again, I'll put some resources in there to help you, if you want to follow up this idea of calorie density. Let's go on to the next slide. Dr. Greger is kind of fanciful. He put this graphic together and I've gotten permission to use it. You can go a couple of ways. Let's say you really want to fill up your stomach. You're worried about getting hungry. So you can put 4 cups of strawberry ice cream, which would be 2 pints, and that would fill up your stomach once. But what if you say, well, I'm going to have those strawberries, just plain strawberries, whole strawberries. You can have 44 cups of strawberries, not strawberry ice cream, but strawberries. How many stomachs would you fill up? A lot more than yours, 11 stomachs. It's amazing. So that's the whole point of calorie density, that you take a whole food and it'll usually fill you up because it's lots of fiber. Or you can process it and make strawberry ice cream out of those strawberries, and it's not going to fill you up nearly as much. Calorie density, that's a real key when we're talking about weight management. And also getting your nutrients. Maybe you have no weight to lose, which is great, but you still want to get those nutrients, and you're going to do it through the idea of calorie density, nutrient density. Okay, I think we've kind of covered it. Let's see in the next slide. Oh, I do want to share this with you. A very wonderfully smart dietitian, Jeff Novak, put together a chart. Because remember, I said you don't have to weigh, you don't have to measure, but you have to kind of have a concept of, well, what foods are calorie dense? And maybe when you're just starting, you don't have a clue. You probably know that oil is calorie dense because I've told you it a couple times now. And you may realize fruits and vegetables are not calorie dense, very calorie dense. But let's take a look at, you see what he did is he put foods in kind of an order. And you can get this chart. I asked him and he indicated I could use this from my program, and then you can go to his website and find this chart. But basically on the left are foods that you want to indulge in. Fruits, vegetables, tubers like potatoes, whole grains. And then you see legumes and pasta, and we got the tofu in there. Tofu is a little higher, in calories, but it also is nutrients. So we kind of give that a yellow. Now, if you're thinking this kind of looks like a stoplight, it is. You want the green foods. You want to stay away from the red foods. And the yellow foods are kind of cautionary. Now, you might be saying, well, if that's all the foods in the world, and you're only saying I should eat on the left-hand side, I'm not eating all those other foods. Believe me, there are tons of different kinds of fruits and vegetables and grains and different kinds of pasta. They're really having all kinds of pastas, I'm sure you've noticed in the grocery store, made out of vegetables, you know, so there's still quite a variety. And I'm not saying you don't go over to the right-hand side. Look what's over there. Let's start with we have avocado, another plant. I'm just going from the left. Avocado, 700 as far as calorie density, but it's still a healthy food. Now, some people, if they have either really watching weight or they have a heart condition, there is enough fat, not saturated, but there is enough fat in avocados that you have to be a little cautious. But then we go on to these other poultry, eggs, fish, beef. All of those are animal products, and I went over this in session 1, that there are some health risks associated with that, besides the fact that they have a lot of saturated fat and cholesterol. Then let's take a look at, we get into tortillas. Again, a food that you may want to indulge in. There's no problem with taking a tortilla and then putting the vegetables inside, you know, have a roll up like that. It's just that you have to realize you're getting a little more calorie dense. Ice cream, yeah, it's getting kind of calorie dense and no nutrients. And then bread has some nutrients. Again, it's a yellow food. Dried fruit, excellent to eat, but you don't want to eat a whole lot of it. So a lot of times with the yellow foods, you're going to just eat small amounts, sprinkle them on your other foods. Then cheese is very saturated fat. There are some plant-based substitutes. Still, they're pretty high in fat. So again, we don't want huge globs of cheese. If you make a plant-based pizza, it's fine to sprinkle a little bit of cheese, whether you choose dairy cheese or go more with a plant-based, but you don't want a lot, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Okay, and then we get into the sugar, cookies, chips. You know those are red foods. And then nuts and seeds. This is an example of they're fine foods. They have nutrients, but you only want a little bit of it because look at the calorie density. It's really shot up. But it's wonderful on a salad to put a few nuts or to enliven your desserts. So again, I'm not saying you can never venture over to the right side. I'm saying you just have to be cautious and look at the calorie density. Okay, and then we get to the far end, butter and oil, and they are really calorie dense. And you'll probably, if you're trying to lose weight, you don't want to be indulging in those foods. Because again, they'll give you the calories, but they won't give you the nutrients and they won't fill you up. Okay, so I will be putting some information in there. And I saw in the chat, I'll just mention this. Does that include coconut oil? And yes, it does. Any kind of oil, it's plant-based, but it is very high, highly concentrated fat. So, you know, we would ask you to think about, do some research about coconut oil. Coconut oil marketers have done a great job of marketing, but when you look at the studies, coconut oil has the same effect on the endothelial layer that I talked about last time as olive oil. And, you know, it has potential harm for your body, especially the cardiovascular system. So coconut itself is fine. Nothing like a big, you know, hunk of fresh coconut, or you can get shredded coconut that is unsweetened. And that's a nice thing to put on your fruit salads. But coconut oil is something you might want to be cautious about. Okay. Now we'll move on and we're going to talk about another. I told you one basic concept, calorie density. Now I want to talk about one basic skill, and that is reading food labels. Now we'll move on. It does seem like sometimes you need a magnifying glass, especially if you look at the tiny font that the manufacturers like to use when they put the food labels out. But we're going to take a look at what a typical food label looks like. And that'd be on that next slide. Okay, this is more, I should have said, this is the slide I meant. I guess I have it in the wrong order. Okay, you're familiar with this, aren't you? There's a new nutrition facts out now. This is the one. It includes added sugar and it gives you calories in great big letters. You can't miss it. It's an improvement over what we had before. First of all, you need to pay attention to, and I'm going to go in order. Number one, how many servings? A lot of times we look at maybe a can of soup and think, oh, I can eat that whole can. Maybe not. You really need to look at, a lot of times it's much smaller than you'd think. Ice cream, half a cup. If you're going to have ice cream, a lot of people are going to have more than half a cup. So with soup, you get half of a can, and many manufacturers make it so you're only getting half a can. That's not very much at all. So be aware, can you have this whole container? Sometimes even with snacks, it looks like, oh, this is an individual bag. And then you look, oh, I was supposed to share this. I wasn't supposed to eat all of this, in one serving. But okay, 2, calories. There's the big calories. And that's what so many people pay attention to. And you should pay attention to it. But there are other things that we need to look at as well. So calories, if you know how many calories you want to get per day. And then what we look at then is, well, do we have nutrients? Are there nutrients? Maybe it is pretty high in calories, but by golly, we're getting lots of nutrients. Or it might be, well, there aren't many calories, but there's nothing in here that's helping me. As Karen said, we want to eat food that's helping our body. So, okay, so calories is 2. Let's take a look at 3. These are the nutrients I talked about. We're going to look at fat and cholesterol and sodium. Those are kind of the negatives. You want some fat, but we want to stay away from saturated fats. And then we look at carbohydrates, which are not your enemy. Refined carbohydrate, whole complex carbohydrates are what you need for your body to move, to have the fuel. So we want that. And then we want the fiber. And then we want protein. And then as a bonus, in many cases, especially if it's a plant-based food, we're going to get vitamins and minerals. So this is the way a regular food label looks. What it looks like. And a lot of times people say, well, here's a down and dirty rule. If it's 5% or less, it's considered low in fiber, low in fat, that may be good or bad. And if it's 20% or more, it's considered high. And this is based on a percentage of the daily value and on a 2,000 calorie diet. Now, maybe you're not on 2,000 calorie diet. Maybe you think you do pretty well with 1,600 calories a day, in which case, this would be, you'd have to adjust up. Okay, but this is what you're going to find on most food labels, total saturated fat. So let's just look at this food. We don't know what it is, but it's got 9 grams of fat, which is 12% of, we'll have to say, the average person's recommended daily value. It's not high, but it's certainly not low either. It's not 5 or it's not 20. It's in the middle. So saturated fat, 4.5% grams, which is 23%. It's high in saturated fat, and that's the kind of fat we want to avoid. It's good it doesn't have any trans fat, because that's no longer allowed on processed foods. It isn't. Trans fats are in animal foods. They're just naturally there, but saturated fat is what we are concerned with now. So this food doesn't look real healthy. How about cholesterol? We don't need to add any cholesterol. Our body does a great job of making its own cholesterol, and this food has 12%. Okay, sodium, 37%, more than a third. And maybe this is just a snack. You're going to go over your 100% for sure with the sodium. Carbohydrates at 34 grams, not so bad, 12%. And then fiber, 4 grams, pretty good. It could be better. A lot of times what we look at is there's something called the 5-to-1 rule, which is take your carbohydrates, divide it by fiber. So 34 divided by 4 would give you, would it be less than 5 or more than 5? Let's do the math. Okay, it's 8.5. Does that come out right? It's definitely not, you want 5 or less, and this is 8.5. So the carbohydrates are not outweighed by the dietary fiber. And then look at total sugars. Well, there were no added sugars, so that's a good thing. So there, the 6 grams are what was in the food itself. And then it's got quite a bit of protein, 15 grams. Remember I said for most women, 46 grams per day, and for men about 56, so a third. So it comes out high in protein, but you're paying for it with quite a bit of saturated fat. And then you do get, well, let's see, vitamin D, 0. Calcium, you're getting a fourth of your daily requirement. Iron, not so much, but there is some, and potassium, 10%. So this gives you an idea. Now, let's take a look at that slide that was earlier. I skipped over, and we're going to just take a look at, here's some guidelines. Again, we talked about serving size. Pay attention to that. Fat, calories, again, we want 20% or less per serving. Sodium, there is a rule. I don't want to give you too many rules, but it's the 1-to-1 ratio of sodium in milligrams to calories per serving, if you wanted to calculate that out. Or if it's just easier, it might be easier for you to just look at what's the daily percentage. And when we see something like 37%, we know that's an awful lot of calories. Now, be aware, condiments are going to be salty. So generally the 4-to-1 for things like ketchup, soy sauce, etc. Fiber, again, when you see fiber, it's good if it's whole grain, and you want 20% fiber for total carbohydrate grams per serving. And then, as we said, added sugar, you do not want to see any added sugars. There's no reason for it, but you know, they put it in everything. Ketchup has sugar in it. Peaches, canned peaches. Peaches are sweet. We don't need to have added sugar, but be aware of that added sugar. It's a great addition to the new nutrition guidelines or labels. And then finally, you know this, avoid the saturated fats. And again, there's that coconut oil, there's that palm oil. Yes, they're plant-based, but they're still oil. Hydrogenated fats and margarine or shortening. And if you see sugar as the first 3 ingredients, put that thing back on the shelf. You don't want to have all that sugar. Okay, you can get good healthy foods that don't have sugar as their first ingredient. Okay, now we'll move ahead and there we go. Let's just take a quick look at, well, what would a label for candy bar be? Okay, first of all, 1 serving per container. So yes, if you ate this whole candy bar, you'd be getting 360 calories. That's like a third of your calories for the, or not quite a third, but a good portion of your calories, more like a fourth, I guess. Then total fat, 32%. That's a third of your day's calories with just a candy bar. You haven't had any meal. Is that going to fill you up? No, look at the volume, it's small. And then look at the saturated fat, 65%. Excuse me, 13 grams. Cholesterol, sure enough, 20 milligrams. Sodium, well, it isn't high in sodium, so that's one good thing. And then how many carbohydrates? 44. Excuse me while I take a drink here. And then if we try that fiber rule, 44 divided by 2 is 22. It's way over 5, isn't it? Okay, and then let's take a look at added sugars. Well, they didn't add any sugars because it all started as sugar. So this is not a healthy product, but you know that, but the label will prove it. Let's take a look at one that maybe is a little bit easier to swallow, and that's a piece of bread. Now recognize, if you make a sandwich, you've just doubled all these numbers, right? So keep that in mind with bread. Okay, and there are all kinds of breads out there that have oil added to them, sugar added to them. If you can get sprouted bread, that's more, you're going to have more fiber. But look at serving size for bread especially. Okay, bread, total fat, not too much. Saturated fat, it does have a little saturated fat. And sometimes you might find that bread has more fat because it has nuts and seeds. Again, healthy fat. So that might be okay. Bread is not going to have cholesterol. It's not, the sodium can be high. In this case, it's 5% of your daily allowance. Carbohydrates, 21 grams. That's a lot. Divide it by 2, and then we're talking 11 and a half. That's higher than for most foods, you know, for fiber. So you want more fiber, and some breads will have more. You can imagine Wonder Bread doesn't have much fiber. If it says it's whole grain, you're probably going to have more fiber in it. Okay. And then the sugars. So that just is a real quick look at bread. Now you might say, Joan, I can't deal with all this looking at labels. I don't have time for that. I don't bring a magnifying glass to the store. And I'm going to tell you, there's an easy way you don't have to. Eat whole foods. You don't need to look at a label on a cantaloupe or a green bean. So that's what a doctor told me when I complained about, oh, it's so hard to read the labels. You know what he said? Brought me right up, right up. He said, what are you reading labels for? And it's like, oh, you mean I'm supposed to be eating all this whole food? That's when I was first starting. So again, you're going to look at some labels, but you don't have to do quite so much if you get unprocessed foods, whole foods. And I think, let's see what the next screen is. I think it's time now with this little view. And again, I have a whole handout, a resource on how to read labels, you know, to give you a little bit more background. But I think it's time for Karen to take us on a trip. And none of us have been traveling very much, but we're starting to. I hear on the news, folks are ready to travel. So let's go with Karen, and she can help us to do that healthfully.
Okay, thanks, Joan. And I will tie this together by saying that by staying on a whole food, plant-based diet while you're traveling, you may end up losing weight, which is what we found, because we're more active when we're traveling, and we're still maintaining all of the food that we usually eat. So there you go. Most people can't say that when they come back from a trip. So we do hope to get back to more traveling post-COVID, and some of you may have started. So we thought this would be a fun thing to add in so that you can realize that this is possible even when you are traveling around. So we have taken a number of trips since eating this way, mostly car trips. We did take a long overseas trip, but we ended up having a car when we got there, so that helped. But my little story is the first one we took was 6 weeks after we decided to follow this way of eating. We were going to Canada for 3 weeks with our bicycles, and we were driving in the car when we got a phone call from the cardio nurse with my husband's latest test results, the first one since his heart issue that had ended him up in the hospital. And if you remember way back when I told our story, I said we were just going to do this for 6 weeks because we knew we were going on this trip and we were going to see if this made any difference. This was part of our deciding factor to continue. Well, what the nurse said was, she said the results were great and she had nothing else to say. So we thought, okay, I guess we're going to continue with this way of eating and try to do it while we were traveling. So I'm going to share some of our tips and show you some of the pictures of some of the things that we eat when we are traveling. But really, this section should also be called Easy, No Recipe, Plant-Based Meals for Home or Away, because what they are is I don't bring cookbooks with and I don't do anything fancy, but certainly the ideas I'm going to share with you here could be good for home, as well. So I'm going to cover the non-restaurant part of eating while traveling. And then we're going to get to the restaurants after that. But I know that when I'm taking a long trip, I just cannot go out to a restaurant 3 times for 3 meals a day. So we usually stay at hotels or Airbnbs where we can prepare some of our own meals. And we usually stay where we can have a microwave or a mini fridge. Or one time we even brought a small rice cooker with us because we weren't sure we were going to actually have access to a microwave. So think simple. We take a cooler in the car, or when we traveled overseas, we actually bought this little cooler bag when we got there and filled it up with some goodies. And then when you get to your destination, you can shop for groceries or snacks, or you can bring them with you. So this picture here was actually our big trip to New Zealand, and we found this wonderful grocery store as we hit the road, and I brought everything in that we bought because I wanted to sort it all out and figure out how we were going to use it and what we were going to do. And then this was also a picture of a farmer's market that we found. And so that's another way, a fun way when you're traveling. And we ended up buying some fruits that I had never had before that were kind of fun to try. So of course we pack some paper plates and silverware, and don't forget the can opener. I have a microwave bowl with a lid. I think it's like a Pampered Chef thing I had gotten. It has a strainer on the top, and it's really nice for just steaming things or just using it as a big bowl as well. And then you're going to take with your usual water bottles and hot cups, thermoses, if you bring those. And I also take some simple spices with, like cinnamon or chili powder, or just a few things that I think are going to enhance the simple foods that I'm going to buy. So just what we do is we plan really basic meals when we're not eating out. And we do go out sometimes if we can find a place to go. But breakfast is usually hotel oatmeal or fruit, or we make something called overnight oats. Some of you may have already tried that. But I'd save the empty plastic jars from nut butters. Peanut butter, almond butter come in. They're great for traveling. So what we do is I put the oats in with some plant milk and or water. I add some cinnamon, I add some mashed banana, which you can usually get, easily when you're traveling, maybe some diced apple or raisins, cinnamon, and put it all in that the night before. And then in the morning, you've got this jar of food ready to go. So if you're hitting the road early or you're hiking or wherever you're going, you can just take it with and have a really easy breakfast. In the mid-morning or for afternoon snack, I think last time I mentioned Lara bars, which are basically just dried fruit and nuts, give you lots of energy. And potatoes. One of our favorite snacks are just potatoes. You can microwave those the night before or even in the morning, take them with in a little container, put a little nooch, which is nutritional yeast, gives things a cheesy flavor, a little spritz of Bragg's, which is kind of like a soy sauce, Bragg's amino, or any seasoning you want, and there you go. So we often take potatoes with to fill us up before we go on a hike or a bike ride or wherever we are when we feel like we're hungry. So of course, veggies and fresh or dried fruit, crackers. There's a brand called Mary's Gone Crackers, and it doesn't have any oil in it. It's fairly low in sodium if you get the original one. Trader Joe's also has a cracker that I believe is whole grain, no oil. So those are just a few things that we travel with. Lunch, sometimes we'll go out to lunch if we find some place, but otherwise we'll use the pre-washed greens that we can pick up at the store, or sandwiches. There's peanut butter and no sugar jelly, which works for me. It works when we're out on the road, or hummus and avocado with some veggies mixed in. So it's just very basic, some fruit, and maybe, little baby carrots and things like that. So, and this last picture is if you have time to make some things ahead of time before you go somewhere, and if you do have a cooler, you can do that as well. So I think this is like either tofu salad or no tuna salad made from chickpeas and some leftovers and things that I needed to take with us to empty the fridge. So that's always helpful if you're going just on a weekend trip or, to prepare before you go. So just quickly, we're just going to kind of look at these things. And again, these are things you can make at home. These doesn't have to be just for traveling, but here's a kale mix salad with some quinoa, some beans. I think I put on some cucumber and other veggies and a little dab of hummus, on top. This was a place where we actually had a stove at an Airbnb. So super easy. Red lentils cook up really fast and they make things sort of creamy. So I just took some lentils, some canned tomatoes, a carton of vegetable broth, some quinoa, cooked it up for a little while. It looks like I might have thrown some greens in there. We had some fruit that our host left for us. And that was another meal that lasted a couple of days. And again, Joan mentioned different kinds of pastas. So here's a bean pasta with just some steamed yellow squash. You can add some of that nooch on top or some pasta sauce. There's that bowl I was telling you about. And so these are things that you can do in a hotel room, even nothing, nothing fancy. And believe me, I don't want to spend time cooking. I mean, anything I make is going to take, 15 minutes, and that's about it. So there's some really good meals. Here's some other meals again, and you can see the basis is a starch, some beans, vegetables, whether they're fresh or frozen. And that's what makes up all these meals. Again, my pictures are not exactly maybe Instagram worthy, but you kind of get the idea. Here's some fresh fruit with some cinnamon on top that we have for dessert. These are these little spoon fork things that I kind of bring with and wash as well. So, and then, again, more of the same, different pastas, different beans, rice. You can make a peanut sauce. If you have peanut butter with you, you can easily make a little peanut sauce, or sometimes I'll splurge and have a little bit of that light coconut milk and make kind of a curry with some noodles and mushrooms. Very, very basic. Again, I probably should be working for Trader Joe's, but we often will try to find the closest Trader Joe's or one, a grocery store we're familiar with to see, to make sure we can get some of the things we need, but really you can buy anywhere. So that's our traveling and our meals. So sometimes when you're traveling, you are going to want to go out to eat, or when you're home now, the restaurants are starting to open up a little bit more and weather's getting nice, we can eat outside. So Joan's going to take us on a little bit of how we negotiate going out to restaurants.
Well, I'm glad to be back, and thank you, Karen. Karen has so many good ideas. I'm kind of more of a reluctant cook, as I said before. So, but I think we all like to go out to eat, and now that restaurants are opening up, let's talk about how you can do it healthfully. And I'm going to admit, sometimes it takes a little research, and it definitely takes some negotiation skills. You might find yourself in a restaurant and feel like this, and I'm going to have Karen advance that next screen. You might say, I've got a lot of work to do here. I have to do research. What I'm going to say is there are ways to make it easier, and one of them is to think ethnically. Often Asian, Mexican, Middle Eastern restaurants will have a lot of plant-based meals all set for you. You may still have to ask some questions, but we find that often that's easier going to an ethnic restaurant. And as Karen has already mentioned, when you're traveling, you need to be prepared and flexible. I ask and negotiate, but you need to be considerate. You don't go in there and say, demand, well, I'm a vegan and I don't eat any of this stuff. I'm going to give you an example shortly. But you want to be considerate. And if someone treats you really well when you're eating out, the waitress goes out of her way to get you the nice plant-based meal that you enjoyed, tip them well. And they'll remember you and they'll work with you the next time. So negotiate and be considerate. Again, be discriminating, but don't be a problem. If you go out with a group of people and you make this big discussion about, well, I can't eat this and I won't eat this, and people are going to say, oh, what a pill. So what you say is, you might want to talk to the waitress, and sometimes you can make a joke out of it. Oh, are you ready for the special request? I mean, I've been known to do that. Okay, here comes the problem, child. But you make it a little bit fun. And then you can also just say to the waitress individually, well, I have some health needs or I have some special needs. So I'll just talk to you about what I want to order. And you don't have to do it in front of everybody else, so. And there are some sites, Happy Cow is one, apps that you can use to look for restaurants that might be more accommodating to you. But again, you might find yourself at a place like this. And you say, well, what do you have with no fat, no sugar? And the waitress says napkins. Hey, they got fiber, but not a lot of nutrients. So we're going to do a little scenario here. We're going to Joe's Diner. Are you ready to go with me? I've recruited my husband reluctantly. Here he comes. He's the diner, and I'm going to be the waitress. Hi, welcome to Joe's Diner.
Hello.
Best burgers in town. What can I get for you, honey?
Well, I'm vegan.
Vegan, what's that?
Well, vegan, let me explain it this way. I can say what it is and what it isn't. What it is not is we don't eat animal products and animal
No meat? No meat?
No meat, but plant-based. We eat a lot of plant-based things. Fruits, vegetables, legumes, that kind of stuff.
Oh boy,
and there's cheese and there's milk and there's other kind of meat substitutes made out of those kind of items.
I don't think we got any of that here, bud. No.
Well, I was taking a look at the menu earlier,
Yeah.
and I think there's something we can do. I saw on the sides menu that you can get a baked potato.
Oh, we got spuds, sure.
Okay, yeah, I'd like one of those, and I think I saw you had mixed vegetables.
Yeah, that's today's special mixed
Okay,
vegetables.
I would like one of each of those, and then what I'm going to do is split the potato and put all the vegetables on top of the potato, and that'll be my main meal.
Oh.
And in addition, I'd like some iced tea.
Oh, I bet you want it unsweetened too, huh?
Well, yeah, that would be good.
Oh, I got your number, bud.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let me go check with the chef. I don't know. We call him cook here, but okay.
She's quick.
Yeah, he said he'd do it.
Okay, let's try it.
Okay. Couple minutes later.
Well, look at this. Just what I ordered.
You know, that don't look half bad.
And that's enough for 2 meals.
Wow.
Wow.
And your check wasn't very large. I see I got your check right here.
Quite often I can eat for less than $10.
Really?
That's a fact. So now you know what to serve vegans when they come in.
You know what? I'm going to tell them we got the vegan special.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is great.
Oh, it's, you know, nutrition can be kind of a complex subject, and a lot of people think it's boring, but it's so fun sometimes, and sometimes we just can get a little corny. So thanks to my husband who's being pulled in, and we've now been to Joe's Diner. So we've been traveling, we've been shopping. Let's move on just a little bit now.
Okay.
And we can look at what restaurants.
All right. So thanks, Larry. Thanks for that. That is great. That is great. So we're going to go over some restaurants that you may end up with. We're certainly not advocating that these are regular places in your rotation of meal plans, but they're not perfect. A lot of these places, as you all know, restaurants, you know, are really known for adding more sodium and oil to their foods. But we just want you to know that there's some choices out there with you when you're away from home. So even if you're not completely plant-based and you haven't gotten there yet, but when you go out to some places, this just might give you some food for thought here as far as what to pick. So I've got these slides. They're from PCRM, which is the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. It's Dr. Bernard's deal here. And so, you know, Subway, again, you know, you choose your breads, you want to get the, you know, as hearty a wheat as you can. You may not be able to get 100% whole wheat, but just ask to load it up with the veggies. You know, this says to avoid guacamole, but that's just because what Joan was saying is it's a little higher in fat. So if you're trying to lose weight or watching your blood sugar, you know, you just want to be a little careful with that. But see what kind of condiments might, you know, spice it up and have it taste good. There might be some soups. You just have to ask, and you have to be sure. Sometimes veggie patties do contain some milk or eggs. So that's just one option. Another place would be Panera. Again, I'm told they have some steel cut oatmeal with fruit and whole grain bagels. again, these are choices for when you're out and you don't have your own whole foods that you've made or brought with you. I know that Panera online, they have you can go online and they will tell you what's on their menu that is vegan. So there's the soup, I guess there's a vegetable soup that you can get, and you can order a sandwich or salad and just hold the cheese, hold the chicken, whatever is on there that you don't want. And sometimes I'll ask, well, if you've taken off the chicken, maybe you want to add some avocado for me if you have it, or add some extra veggies. You probably end up paying for it anyway. So, and the other thing is sometimes I will bring my own salad dressing with if I'm going to a restaurant and I'm not sure what's going to be there that I can put on the salad. But you can always just ask for a little vinegar if they have that, or some salsa, and that works as well for when you're out. Pizza, every now and then you got that taste, for pizza, and you don't want to make it yourself. We have found that Mod Pizza is a place locally. They have one very close to me, and they will just load on the vegetables. So they do have a vegan cheese there, but I usually just skip that and just ask for lots of veggies. They usually have broccoli and corn and mushrooms and onions and garlic and all kinds of whatever you like on there. So that usually works for getting that pizza. And then Asian restaurants, Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, always guaranteed to have tofu that you can add, or edamame. I found that sometimes you want to ask for steamed tofu, although fried tofu does taste good, but it does have the oil in it. And again, sometimes when I'm out, honestly, I don't worry about it too much. I usually say, can you make it without oil, or can you reduce the oil? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But this is going out. This is a once in a while adventure. So you might have brown rice. They might not. Don't worry about that too much. But just make sure that you say, no eggs, no fish sauce. This says avoid coconut milk. Again, once in a while, I think that's okay. It depends what your health issues are and how strict you need to be. Japanese restaurants, there's that edamame. We mentioned that last session. It's a great snack for, you can buy packages of these frozen, and it's a great snack to have at home too. But sushi rolls without the fish work well. Sometimes they have just different stir fries as well. Mexican restaurants or places where you build a bowl. This works quite often when you're out. You check to see if the beans are made without lard. You've got different kinds of rice, usually, and salsas, your tortillas. Just kind of fill it up with the vegetables and beans as much as you can. So, and Indian restaurants they're really good about knowing what vegan means and adapting, because there's lots of lentils and beans and peas that are part of their regular menu. Lots of vegetables, cauliflower, potatoes, eggplant, things like that. And usually if you ask for what the vegan options are, you'll be able to get those. So just, avoid things that have the cream and the milk in it. So here's some pictures of our trips. It's my other half here, eating at a all vegan Indian buffet that we found. I think this is when we were in New Zealand, actually. And the best Buddha bowl I have ever had, that I'll never have again, because that was also when we were overseas. But just to get an idea of, if you're lucky, you might find a vegan restaurant. And we do use that Happy Cow app. If you purchase it for, I think it's $3.99, and it's on your phone, and it finds your location and tells you places to go near you. So that's really helpful, especially when you're traveling and you don't even know where you are or which town you're near, if you're on the highway or something. And then this was a place, a Core Life Eatery. Again, one of those places where you build a noodle bowl or a salad bowl. I don't think they're locally in our area here, but I know they are at various places in the Midwest. And again, here's some of those Asian meals. It's making me hungry looking at them again. So, okay, so I hope you got some ideas there and don't feel like you always have to be at home. So there are some options. So we're going to talk just a little bit about meal planning, because it really does help to meal plan. It will keep you on track. It will keep you prepared. It will reduce your stress because you know where you're headed. It will reduce waste, which we all want to do, and it will save some time. So I mentioned some of these things in the last session as well, where to shop, really anywhere. I do love the international markets like H Mart in Schaumburg. There's one close by here that I get wonderful choices of potatoes, different varieties and different varieties of mushrooms. And I can get all kinds of rice noodles and things like that. Online, you know, if you aren't close to grocery stores, we're so lucky where we're at in the Elgin area and thereabouts that we have so many wonderful options. But Vitacost is like a health food kind of online. I find that to be less expensive than like going to Whole Foods or some of the health food stores. And they have a lot of really good products. Just read those labels though anyway. The farm community supported agriculture. We get a box delivered of organic vegetables once a week. I know they deliver to Elgin and I pick mine up in Cary and from Angelic Organics. And that's always fun because sometimes I don't know what's going to be in the box and I have to figure out what to do with it. So there are some online meal planning programs. I did use this Engine 2 Plant Strong for a month or two when I very first started because I was like, I don't know, I didn't have any cookbooks. I didn't really know where to go. I didn't know anybody else who was doing this at the time. It's changed a lot in the last few years. But I think for $10 or $15, you know, they'll give you ideas. I didn't like all of the food 100%, but it kind of gave an idea of where to start. So if you feel like you need something like that, you know, it may be worth it. This Monkey and Me site is a free website and they have meal plans where they tell you, here's 5 meals for the week and here's the grocery list. So you definitely want to have the Daily Dozen app from Dr. Greger, and we went over that last time. PCRM has a free 21-day kickstart program. They also have delicious recipes and really good ideas. But again, my warning is don't plan on cooking 21 meals in a week. You're going to get really tired of it really fast. So you want to think simple and you want to repeat and have leftovers and repeat your meals. So don't get too overwhelmed by thinking that you need all this fancy stuff right away. Okay, so here's my tips. Pick a website or pick a cookbook or pick a theme, an ethnic theme or something that gets you started for the week. Plan your meals with similar ideas that you can cook one time. So if you make rice and you have it with your chili, then you've made extra. So the next night you'll have rice with a stir fry. So you're only cooking part of a meal each time. And then you might also add that rice to a rice salad. So you can even stretch it and get 3 meals. Or if you make enough, you'll have leftovers and take care of lunch. If I bake tofu for sandwiches, I use it in a stir fry or in a salad. I made cheese sauce the other day. We had it on pasta. Then I can use it for chili. So when you're making that plan, kind of keep that in mind and always have something in rotation. So that makes it simpler as well. Ideas for breakfast, like we talked about, oats, super salad for lunch, our leftovers, and then your stews, chilies, wraps, your bowls, things like that, and repeat. You want to have a grocery list. I use a phone app. It's not available anymore. So if any of you have any that you like that are still available, maybe you can add that to the chat. But I have one where I can say, this is what I buy at Trader Joe. This is what I buy at Costco. And I kind of keep adding to my list. So I know what I need next time I go there. Use whatever you have on hand and learn to love leftovers. Can't say that enough. And go with the food that you like first. It's great to be adventurous and try things, but find a few recipes that you like and don't feel like you have, just repeat them until you find more that you like as well. So you also can stock up on those staple items, kind of like traveling. You're going to want those canned beans, the canned tomatoes, the frozen fruits and vegetables, a few condiments, some nut butters, different kinds of grains and dried fruits. And you can make any number of meals from that. If you haven't planned or you feel like eating something different, you'll know that you have that ready to go. So keep a running list of your staple items, as you start to use them up. And when you do shop, you're going to plan for some meals, but also you're going to find some things that you want to make sure you have for those snacks and in between meals and desserts, enough fruits and vegetables that you know you're going to use, because nobody wants to be hungry. We talked last time too about pre-cut and frozen foods makes meals quick. That I think it's that Jeff Novick that Joan mentioned. He did a whole episode. I don't know if it's still available, but it was like how to make a meal in literally about 15 minutes. And he uses things like the canned beans, the canned tomatoes, the pastas, and puts it together. So there's lots of shortcuts there. And here I probably sound like a broken record again. Cook double. You can batch cook, and batch cooking can mean different things. It can mean you're going to take a half a day and make a couple of foods in full that you're going to have ready for the week, like some soups and some stews, or it might mean you're going to do parts of things. So you have the rice ready, you have the quinoa ready, you have the cheese sauce ready to go for the week, and you have all of your greens washed and ready to go. So there's lots of different ways to look at batch cooking. So this nutritiously.com, they actually sell some cookbooks and some meal plans. I have not purchased them yet. I might, just because I want to support them. They have such wonderful articles on getting started and how to eat a plant-based diet. So this was something I took from their site about what a 3-day meal plan would look like. So again, you can kind of get an idea. Here's this veggie chili for dinner. Here's it again for lunch. They have banana pancakes for breakfast. To me, that would be a weekend breakfast, although I'm retired. I don't really know why it would be a weekend versus a weekday, but I don't know. I always think it's Saturday or Sunday, I gotta make pancakes. But, you know, again, and here's the rice. Maybe you had rice with your chili, and here it is again to make it into a salad. So the green smoothie bowl, I've actually made this, and it's like frozen bananas and soy milk and spinach that you blend together and pour that into your bowl, and then you add your oats, sort of like you'd be making overnight oats, your rolled oats on top of it, and I threw some nuts on it and some cinnamon and a few other little tidbits, maybe some coconut or something, and it made a really nice breakfast. So there you go. And you can always have a salad before a meal. Going along with what Joan said about calorie density, fill yourself up before you're going to eat a heavier meal. Fill yourself up with that salad. Your stomach's going to feel full, and then you're not going to eat, you know, your three servings of pasta. You're going to be full with all the vegetables first. So this also is from their site. And again, I probably sound like a broken record again, but you know, here's how you build your meal. Even if you don't have a recipe, you start with the various starches, whether it be sweet potato, quinoa, rice, pasta, you know, things like that. You add your legumes, so your tofu on there, your tempeh. They mentioned falafel, veggie burgers, things like that. Then you add whatever vegetables that you like. You can roast them, you can steam them, air fry them, you know, experiment with what you like, add a few toppings, and you know, you'll get to know different kinds of seasonings that you like. Do you like it spicy or not so spicy? Do you want it with lemon? Do you want it with hot sauce? I know hot sauce is a favorite amongst plant-based eaters. It gives everything a really good flavor. So there's that. So we hope I've given you some ideas to start your week or your month or whenever you decide you want to jump in with this. So we're going to jump back to Joan again.
We just keep bouncing you back and forth, don't we? We're ready to finish up now, wind down. I think what we really want to say is we recognize nutrition is a very personal thing, and it's your decision how much you want to slant your diet to whole plant-based foods. However, you know, I've given some research, Karen's given you some wonderful examples of how to do it. We've tried to give you the why you'd want to slant your diet more to whole food plant-based meals, and then how could you do it if you decide, yeah, this is a good approach. So hopefully we've given you strategies that would work and reasons why. But again, it's your choice, and you may decide, well, I'll try a little bit, and then if I'm successful, I'll move ahead. Some people jump right in. But again, we want to stress that it is your decision based on what you've learned and what techniques you now know. And we'll move on. We're trying to make sure you have resources though, because we don't want to be spark plugs that get you all excited and then you're on your own. There are lots of ways that you can get support. And as we say here, find your people. And part of the people would be plant-based nutrition movement. You can join the organization. You see the website, and I've given you that. And then educate yourself. There's lots of documentaries out there, lots of books we've mentioned. Keep learning so that you feel empowered that you could do this if you want to. And then we'll finish up with, well, a little philosophy. Focus on your progress. If you find something that's difficult for you, make a plan, keep trying. If you find something that works for you, do it again. And believe me, it will get easier over time. When you know your motivation and you continuously remind yourself of it, you'll be successful. And with that, we're going to ask you just a few questions. Do remember that we've put all the resources in the chat, and we'll take a little time, but if you wouldn't mind finishing up with this poll question number 4, that would be great.
Yeah, so just let us know what was most helpful about this class.
Yes, the weight management, the food labeling, eating out, traveling, our meal planning ideas.
Okay, I think we probably have as many people that are gonna weigh in.
Yeah, it looks like we've got 82%, so and here's what we found. Karen, the meal planning ideas were very popular, and we appreciate that you had so many good ideas. That's great.
Okay. All right, then we have just one more. Oh, there it is. My confidence in eating more whole food plant-based foods has increased by attending. And then add any more comments that you have in the chat as well. Okay, I think we can end that. Oh, 100%. They were listening, Joan.
I guess so. I'm glad that you're feeling more confident. Okay, that's great. Okay, and then we had that one question. If you have ideas, if there are other nutrition topics that you're interested in learning about, if you could add those to the chat box. We won't need the poll anymore, but if you could add those, that will help us guide us as far as what's. And we just want to remind you, this is a famous quote by Hippocrates, but it's so apt. Let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. And we want to thank you for attending. Some of you we know need to go, and it's after 8, but some of you may have some questions. And I've given you can contact us, and that's in the chat box as well as on this screen. You can contact us at that website, or if you want to email me at my website, Plant-Based Joan, I'll get back to you as well. So, you know, but we'll be happy to stay and answer some questions now if you have some. I appreciate that some of you have been good about responding. And we did get Karen Plan to Eat, which is apparently a shop